Good morning. Welcome to a very special day at Springfield College, TomWaddell Day. My name is Marty Dobrow. I am a communications professor and the 2014-15 Distinguished Springfield Professor of Humanics. Some visitors might be unfamiliar with the word humanics. It's not in the dictionary, but at Springfield College it is etched deeply in our hearts. Humanics is our philosophy, it is our lifeblood, it is our mission. Our mission statement is admittedly a lofty one, educating students in spirit, mind, and body for leadership in service to humanity. In my 16 years of teaching at Springfield College, I have learned that the ultimate compliment around here is to hear that you, quote, embody the humanics philosophy. Many people have done so quite effectively over the years. But I submit that in the 130-year history of this great institution, no individual has embodied the humanics philosophy any better than Tom Waddell, a member of the Springfield College class of 1959 that is very well represented here today. Let us explore the triangle, the body. Tom Waddell was a remarkable athlete. Some say the greatest in school history. We will hear some of those stories during our second hour of our presentation today, where we have a number of his classmates and teammates on hand. Tom played 3 sports at Springfield College, an unlikely trio indeed: football, gymnastics, and track and field. So talented was he in track and field that in 1968, 9 years after his graduation, he represented the United States in the Mexico City Olympics in the most versatile challenge in the sport, the decathlon, and finished 2nd among Americans and 6th in the world. The mind. Tom Waddell never thought of himself as an intellectual, but he was smart enough to successfully switch his course of study from physical education to pre-med and become an internationally successful doctor, specializing in infectious diseases. He worked all over the world as sort of Doctors Without Borders before there was such a thing. A clinic where he worked in San Francisco now bears his name. The spirit. This is, of course, the hardest one to define. To me, spirit is taking a journey into your heart and having the courage to live what you find. And in that sense, you would be hard-pressed to find anyone with more spirit than Tom Waddell. He was a remarkably authentic person, someone who would search his heart for the deepest truths and then summon the strength to live them, even if there were hard consequences. You see that again and again in his life. Witness the way he became a doctor in the first place. He arrived here in 1955 as a physical education major. His freshman roommate was a gentleman by the name of Don Marshman, a tremendous athlete in his own right. Very popular. He would become the class president later. We'll hear more about Don later in the program. Marshman was a very serious student, a pre-med major. One awful day in February 1958, Don Marshman and Tom Waddell went to gymnastics practice early in Judd Gym. Marshman was doing a backswing on the flying rings, lost his grip, and crashed to the floor, landing on his head with a sickening thud. This was an absolutely harrowing moment for Tom Waddell. Marshman was rushed to the hospital. He died later that evening. In his grief, Waddell decided to become a pre-med major, to become a doctor. He wanted his life to be about healing, and it would be so for the rest of his days, and I would argue even now. Or witness his decision in 1965 to travel to Selma, Alabama as a medical volunteer in support of Martin Luther King Jr.'s work on voting rights. Or in 1968 at the Olympics, speaking up very publicly for John Carlos and Tommie Smith, the two African-American sprinters who raised their gloved arms as fists in support of Black power from the medal stands in Mexico City. A very controversial moment. Tom Waddell had their backs. He became an outspoken critic of the war in Vietnam, despite the fact that he was trained as a paratrooper in the US Army. Then in 1976, in what was an absolutely shocking development for many of his friends at Springfield College, he came out as gay, and he did so in the most public way possible, in the pages of People magazine. In the article, he said simply, quote, "I believed that I wasn't sick, that my feelings were quite normal, if not accepted by most of society. I decided that was their hang-up and not mine." Sounds like absolute common sense now, but it was revolutionary at the time and quite risky. 6 years later, in 1982, he would start the Gay Games, probably his greatest legacy. We will hear a lot more about them today. 5 years after that, in 1987, he would die of AIDS at the age of 49. He packed an extraordinary amount of living into 49 years. And what was that life about? Leadership in service to humanity. In that sense, Tom Waddell was an absolute beacon. I am not unmindful that Tom Waddell Day coincides with the National Day of Silence, which is being observed by a number of people on the Springfield College campus and throughout the country. National Day of Silence is organized by a group called GLSEN, which stands for the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. It is designed to bring attention to anti-LGBT behavior such as bullying and harassment. We should be acutely aware of this issue in the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, because of a tragedy that took place here 6 years ago this month. An 11, almost 12-year-old by the name of Carl Joseph Walker Hoover hanged himself at his home after bullying and taunting from his 6th grade classmates. Carl was, by all accounts, a very bright, outgoing, talented child, a Boy Scout, an athlete, a performer. It's kind of a shocking thing to contemplate, someone that young taking his own life. And as you will hear later today, during the second hour, this tragedy was part of the impetus for the founding of the Dr. Tom Waddell Fund for Diversity Education on our own campus. We respect and salute those who are keeping silent today, and we join you in the heart of that spirit. But we choose to speak, nevertheless, in honor of the remarkable Dr. Tom Waddell. As a side note, I just learned this morning, today would have been Carl's 18th birthday. He wanted, even back then, to go to college. Perhaps it would have been right here this next fall at Tom Waddell's alma mater. And before explaining today's program, I would like to observe one moment of silence, though, in honor of Carl Joseph Walker Hoover. Thank you. Okay, we have a fabulous program here today, and I want to go through it very quickly. We have 3 separate hours of programming. It's designed in such a fashion that students and professors can come and go according to their schedule, so it's not a cumulative program. There's one set of programs offered in this first hour from 9 to 10, a second one from 10 to 11, third one from 11 to 12. We'll have breaks in between. Refreshments are available. And so, feel free to move about the cabin as you see fit. During hour number 1, we've had this introduction, and we're going to have a film clip about Tom Waddell in a moment. Then we'll take a break. Hour number 2, we have Jeffrey Pike is here from Boston, from the Federation of Gay Games. It's very meaningful to us at Springfield College that the Federation of Gay Games has embraced this event so fully and so deeply and wanted to be represented today, and it's a great, great honor to have Jeffrey here. So he will be talking about Tom's legacy and the history of the Gay Games during the first part of that hour. And then we have a panel discussion of a number of people who are connected with Tom Waddell. Some of them were friends of his and classmates, teammates, some people just inspired by him. So I think we'll sort of be able to bring him to life. And there are a number of, it's been great to see the class of '59, as word got out about this, people have just come from some distance to come here, from Vermont, from New Hampshire. They're coming down, people who haven't been on this campus for many, many years, and all in tribute to Tom. I've seen some amazingly moving tributes from people from this class, and people who weren't even supposed to be part of this panel who have asked to be on it, and we'll find a way to get you on it. We will. We want to hear from you. We really do. It's great that you're here. Then we'll take a break at 11, and then we have our third hour is our keynote speaker, Mr. Rob Kearney, who's over here, who is, as I think you'll see, very much a modern-day Tom Waddell in many, many respects. We'll have a brief special tribute from the mayor of Springfield about this day, and then we will have the dedication of a plaque that will be done by our president, Dr. Mary Beth Cooper. So that's the plan. Before we get rolling, the inevitable list of thank yous, and it's just an event like this, there is no doing it without a lot of people's effort, and most of it's invisible. And people aren't doing it for the glory. You know, they're not coming up, their name's not attached to this, but it would not have happened without these people. So I just want to run through some names of people who've been involved with this. I apologize for people who I am omitting accidentally in this list. Please hold your rousing ovation until the end, and then let them have it, okay? So first of all, President Mary Beth Cooper, who has just been a great beacon for diversity on this campus from the moment that she arrived. You know, I think it's no accident that this is happening under her presidency. Vice President of Academic Affairs and Provost, Dr. Jean Wild, who has just been a great support to me as humanics professor. The Dean of the School of Arts, Sciences, and Professional Studies, Dr. Ann Herzog. Huge amount of help from the Office of Development here, most notably from Scott Berg and Joe Long, who embraced this cause as their own, have just championed this from the beginning. It's so important to them, and they brought such great spirit and ideas and energy and money to this, so thank you. Also from that office, Doug Scanlon, Shelley Funk, Kathy Ouimet, a number of other people who have really helped to make this day come about. Our marketing and communications office has been instrumental in this. Jane Votero, who edits Triangle and has just believed so strongly in this story, the Tom Waddell story, and so strongly in me, which I really appreciate. I don't even know if Jane's here right now, but I wanted to thank her for being sort of my partner in excavating some important stories, I think, about Springfield College history, and sometimes delicate stories, but I think really important ones to tell. And the rest of that office, which has just been great in promoting this event, Steve Rulier, Damon Markowitz, Ann Fisher, Kelly Kanye, Kate Pendorf, everyone in that office has been great. Media services, always reliable. Mike Ahern does a fantastic job, has just been so on everything here, and he's got his a number of people from his crew here involved, Steve Gard, Kyle Palazzi. Aramark for the food, thank you so much. Thanks also to Sarah Waddell Lewenstein and Jessica Waddell Lewenstein. We'll be hearing from them momentarily. To a couple former members of the Springfield College community who have been amazing inspirations for this event and for my year as humanics professor. I'll be talking more about them in my humanics lecture on Tuesday. You're all invited, 4 p.m. over in Fuller. Jim and Jean Genassi. Jim, a former humanics professor himself. They're 86 and 85 years old, respectively, and incredibly active and just, forceful advocates for social justice at every turn. And a special thanks to Phyllis Potnick, who we will hear from later, who is up here from Florida. who has been an absolute guiding light for social justice at Springfield College and just a real co-conspirator with me about this event, has checked in with me in this wonderful way throughout this year, and has really been a great person for me to sort of learn from and talk to and just embrace on this topic. So, and lastly, I wanted to also thank Jeff Monceau from our Special Collections and Archives, without whom none of these stories that I like to tell would be possible. He's just so great at helping to excavate and find material and unearth the history of this great college. Okay, big, rousing round of applause for everyone. Now let us get a sense of Dr. Tom Waddell. The film clip that you are about to see was the last major interview that was done with Dr. Waddell shortly before he died in 1987. It was an interview on 2020, and though dated in a couple of ways, I think it holds up amazingly well. You get a sense, even withering from AIDS, the man's incredible strength, intelligence, kindness, and dignity. It just pours out of him, and there's nothing that I can say that can do sufficient tribute to what he is about. So I wanted to roll this tape, and I also see one person I neglected to thank, but I really needed to thank, Brianna Hill, who has come all the way back here from California to help with this event and with my humanics lecture, who's just been a great representative of the student body around these issues too. So thank you so much, Bri, for coming back. And now let us go to the tape.
Sometimes when a story is in the news week after week, we begin to get numb. We shut our eyes and close our ears. And we know that stories about AIDS victims get that reaction from some people. Maybe it's because so far there hasn't been one with a happy ending. We wish we could offer that tonight. What we have instead is a story filled with peace and courage. A superb athlete, a remarkable man, has learned to live with his disease. And that is his latest victory in a life of accomplishment. Dick Schaap has his story.
But Dad, these are good shots of you and Grandpa.
Sunday in the park. 3 generations. A child, her father, and her grandfather.
Oh, look, we found some flowers.
Sunday in the park, sharing precious moments by the bay in San Francisco.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Sunday in the park. Nothing to disturb the beauty, except the father has AIDS.
If I have any real sadness, it's over the fact that I probably won't see her in her teens. I mean, if I could hang on that long.
Oh, you will.
I'm very realistic about it. And I don't kid myself.
Tom Waddell doesn't kid himself. He doesn't kid other people. He is painfully honest about his illness, about his life. He was a paratrooper in the United States Army. He was a decathlete in the 1968 Olympic Games. He is a doctor who once served as the personal physician to the brother of the King of Saudi Arabia. He is Jessica's father, and he is dying.
I've got AIDS. And I look at the statistics, I look at what that means, and I'm given a set of choices. I can freak out, which isn't going to do me any good at all. Or I can say, this is what is. Am I going to put my head under the sheets and just scream and yell and cry? No, I can't do that. Yeah, there's my alarm.
Tom Waddell is 50. He is on AZT, the newly sanctioned drug that is believed to curb AIDS, to slow it down, not to cure it.
AZT is every 4 hours, and around the clock, 24 hours a day, until something better comes along, and I'm not knocking it, believe me. It's the AIDS patient's great hope. There, I'm alive. I'm a host to something that in many ways is an accident. If I'd known that I was being exposed, I certainly would have taken steps to prevent it, but I didn't know. So there it was, and here it is, and I have it, and it's got to be dealt with.
Tom Waddell is keeping a diary for his daughter.
My dear child, you must know some things about me to understand more about your own life and how you came to be.
You're so delicate and charming.